We start this week's episode of Weather Extra with the historic flooding that's been taking place across central Texas throughout the month of May. Right at the start of the month, our eastern areas were slammed with heavy rain and severe storms. Rain totals in just one day of storms range from half a foot to nearly a foot in some areas east of I-35. Here's video from Limestone County, where widespread flooding took place, hitting areas like Mejia the hardest. You could see how much water was flowing through the Navasota River, with floodwaters getting so high that trees were even covered. And take a look at this aerial footage out of Bosque County. Throughout the first weekend of May, torrential rain fell across the county, with some locations picking up nearly a foot of rain in just 6 hours. What you're seeing right now is video from Clifton. Look at how high the floodwaters rose after the extreme rainfall. Many area livestock animals were swept away due to all the excessive rain, and one man even lost his life due to the raging floodwaters. Now fast forward to last weekend, where more flooding rain fell across central Texas. This was the view out in Coppers Cove last Sunday. Residents in this neighborhood said the streets flooded in a matter of minutes due to the very heavy rainfall. The heavy rain turned streets and yards into rivers. Some people also reportedly even had water get into their cars. Another common thing in last weekend's storms was large hail, and it hit Bell County the hardest. Behind me, you can see some of the large hail that fell across a large majority of the county last Sunday. Hail came down hard onto homes and yards, covering everything like a blanket of snow. Hail sizes range from around pocket change and even reached up to the size of golf balls and eggs around the Belton and Temple areas. News 10's Alex Fulton went out to Bell County last week to take a look at some of the damage and see just how busy auto glass repair shops were after last weekend's storms.
A strong and sudden hailstorm at James Michael Horak's home in Belton.
Unfortunately, these events happen fast. It only took 5 to 10 minutes for it to damage, but it's going to take days and maybe months to fix.
The storm left all 3 of his cars with dents on their hoods and cracks on their windshields.
You know, there's not much you can do about it. There's really not. And that's why you have to have insurance and you have to protect yourself from this kind of weather.
At AGC Auto Glass and Car Care, owner Billy Yoakum has already gotten about 30 requests for quotes online and another 30 calls for similar damage.
We're very busy and going into tomorrow. So as we're lined up, we're getting the customers as fast as we possibly can. As long as the glass is in stock, we're trying to do it as soon as possible.
He recommends getting estimates from multiple shops and consider paying out of pocket.
Sometimes it's cheaper to pay out of pocket versus having to pay a deductible, especially with how expensive some of the newer cars are.
Horak has already reached out to his insurance company and will take his cars into a shop this week for a quote.
We'll see what happens with the vehicle, whether they repair it or where they're going to, what they're going to do with it.
If and when another storm rolls in, he recommends preparing for the worst case scenario.
Stay aware and make sure you have good apps on your phone. You listen to the TV stations like KWTX and what they're reporting.
And even more flooding rain fell across central Texas this past week. Another round of strong storms brought widespread rainfall of 1 to 3 inches across the area, but some central Texas towns picked up anywhere of 4 inches or more. Thankfully, the flooding wasn't as severe or widespread as the flooding that took place earlier in the month, but the ground across our region is so saturated because of all of the heavy rain that's fallen, and even the smallest amounts of rain created some ponding across central Texas. Here's video of some of the flooding across Belton this past Thursday. As you can see, the grass just can't hold any more water, turning this woman's backyard into a lake. Central Texas has been through one of the wettest starts to May on record. Let's take a look at some of the rain totals we've seen across our area throughout the month of May. We're going to focus on our 3 most populated cities of Waco, Temple, and Killeen. In Waco, 9.42 inches of rain has fallen since May 1st. Temple has recorded 8.43 inches and 6.44 for Killeen. Now, we typically see on average about 4.44 inches of rainfall throughout the entire 31 days of May. So that means we've more than doubled what we typically see throughout the entire month, and we still have nearly 2 weeks of the month to get through. As far as the recent rainfall goes, we're also in good shape when it comes to our yearly rainfall accumulations as well. On average, from January 1st through today, May 19th, Central Texas should see about 14.64 inches of rain. Waco has nearly seen 23 inches. Temple has seen over 27, and Killeen has picked up over 18 inches from the start of the year. Now, from January 1st through December 31st, Central Texas's average annual rainfall accumulation is 36.4 inches. That means we've already picked up more than half of our yearly rainfall, and we're not even halfway through the year yet. Here's some more good news. Thanks to the recent rainfall, for the first time in years, all of the lakes in Central Texas are sitting at 100% full. And here's a look at how much our lake levels have changed over the past month. Lake Waco has gone up more than 15 feet, and Lake Whitney has gone up over 7 feet. With the recent rainfall throughout the month, our southern lakes have seen a dramatic rise. Belton Lake has gone up over almost 23 feet over the last month, and this time in April, the lake was sitting at just 75% full. Stillhouse Hollow Lake has seen a dramatic increase over the past month as well. A month ago, the lake was sitting at 65% full and has gone up 22 feet thanks to the recent rainfall. Now, due to the surplus of rain that we've seen so far this year, our lake levels are dramatically different than what they were just 1 year ago. Exactly here, this time last year, Waco Regional only recorded around 14 inches of rain, which was a little below normal for this time of the year. Also, this time last year, Lake Waco was sitting at just 65% full and has gone up nearly 25 feet in the last year. For Lake Whitney, last May, the lake was at 82% full and has increased by nearly 13 feet. Belton Lake was 66% full and has gone up almost 27 feet over the past year. And Stillhouse Hollow Lake was sitting at 70% full of May of 2023, and water levels have come up about 20 feet in the past year. Well, I'm sure you've heard the song or term, rain is a good thing, but too much at one time isn't. Local farmers have been praying for rain, but some of them got more than what they bargained for, and that much-needed rain has caused some problems. News 10's Madison Herbert talked to a farmer in Temple last week who says he's going to have to start all over.
Before the recent rounds of heavy rain and hail, the Newsome's crop would stand up to about my waist. But now, after being beat down, the crop can no longer stand on its own, making a year's worth of work useless.
And we were going to bale the hay, and it started raining, so we couldn't get in to bale it. Then it ripened past the point to where we could bale it, and then it kept on raining, and now it's flat to the ground.
Charles Newsome has been growing grain for his cattle on this 65-acre slice of Temple, Texas heaven for almost a decade, and he is experiencing a rarity in farming, begging for the rain to hold off. The damage has farmers at a standstill. The cows can't graze there.
But if you put them in a small field like this and turn them out, it's going to be soil compaction. Those are issues that are really, really, really hard to turn around.
And the soil is sopping, meaning they can't plow it either. So they wait.
I will turn the cows in on it maybe next month sometime, see if they can get anything out of it, and then just plow it under. Yeah. It's just basically a total loss.
Floyd Ingram with Bell County's Texas A&M AgriLife Extension says other crops are in big trouble too.
The corn took a really big hit, knocked a lot of tassels out of the corn, tore up a lot of leaves, things like that.
But for now, they are taking a roll of the dice on their livelihood.
You don't have to go to Vegas to gamble.
Reporting in Temple, Madison Herbert, KWTX News 10.
Coming up next on Weather Extra, we hear from a local master gardener on the impacts these flooding rains have on your garden. Stick with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. The recent rain might seem good for your garden, but it can create some new issues. News 10's Alex Fulton met with a master gardener who says extra care is needed for your garden after flooding.
Too much rain is a problem.
McLennan County Master Gardener Stephen Levetsky generally recommends waiting 5 days to water after heavy rainfall.
So if you take a pencil and the pencil is dry, you can stick it in the ground, and if around the lead comes up with dirt on it, you don't need any water.
The rain creates extra stems called offsets.
Like this one, just pop it off and get rid of it.
These will need to be cut because they can't carry nutrients, so they can't produce fruit.
Tomatoes are the world's worst about doing that. They'll grow a whole lot of stems and maybe not any tomatoes or any fruits.
Speaking of nutrients,
don't be afraid to put some fertilizer on those plants to get them growing.
Levetsky recommends adding nitrogen fertilizer as soon as possible to replenish nutrients.
In your garden, things tend to get depleted from their nitrogen source, so you add something to it.
If produce was previously covered by high water, Levetsky says it is still safe to eat.
The product, or the fruit, squash, cucumbers, are going to taste just as good, but the plant itself will be somewhat attenuated because it hadn't got as much sunshine.
As far as lawns, Levetsky says to only mow about a third of the grass's height.
And then you can always, in another 5 days to a week, you can go ahead and mow it again and you'll get it back in shape.
This master gardener knows growing in these wet conditions can be a challenge.
The best way you learn how to grow plants is to kill a few of them.
But a little love,
don't give up. It's a great hobby.
Can create something stunning. In Byram, Alex Fulton, KWTX News 10.
Another thing you may have noticed after all this rain is the increase in bugs everywhere. As soon as that spring weather arrived, bugs of all kinds started to come out looking for food, shelter, and warmth, and flooding creates a prime environment for them. News 10's Isabella Quintanilla spoke with a local pest control company to find out what's attracting these bugs and how to keep them out of your home.
This time of the year, we often see a surge of bugs like ants, mosquitoes, cockroaches, and termites who thrive in the warm and rainy weather.
As the season warms up, we start to get rain and a little bit more warmth, and all the bugs come out of kind of being dormant over the winter.
These kind of conditions increase their metabolic and reproductive rates, meaning they're out on the hunt for food and growing their population. Many of these bugs also become more active after heavy rainfall because of all the standing water and moisture in the air. For example, mosquitoes lay their eggs in stagnant water, which is why hundreds of them seem to emerge after a lot of rain.
In a lot of yards, there will be sort of low areas that would hold water during a rain and things like that. So those areas can actually hold mosquito eggs. And then when the rains come and when those are submerged in water, they'll kind of come out of dormancy.
But excessive rain and flooding like we've seen can also lead to water damage inside of your home that attracts all kinds of bugs.
Areas around the home that we like to see people pay attention to would be things that would either build up moisture or provide shelter for insects.
This includes dripping faucets, condensation from your AC vents or windows, and any sort of dark, humid areas. Eliminating these problem spots will help discourage bugs, but you should also make sure your home is properly sealed.
The seals around your windows and doors are a really important part of what keeps the insects from being able to get inside your house.
After a flood, it's always a good idea to have pest control come out to check your yard and house. Reporting in Waco, Isabella Quintanilla, KWTX News 10.
Coming up next on Weather Extras, this week's Degrees of Science. Brady had the chance to speak with Dr. Robert Palmer from the University of Oklahoma. He's involved with some amazing new technology advancements in the world of weather radars. You'll hear more on their conversation right after this.
Welcome into this week's Degrees of Science. This week we're talking about some amazing new technology and advancements in the world of radar coming from the University of Oklahoma. Today we're talking with Dr. Robert Palmer. He's Executive Director of the University of Oklahoma's Advanced Radar Research Center. So Dr. Palmer, you have developed this new radar called HORSE, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But for people that may not know, what kind of technology are we using currently when it comes to radars across the country?
Well, I mean, most people depend on the Weather Service Xtra radars, which are large dish-based systems. So it's sort of like your satellite dish. It's a big dish that's used to focus radio waves onto certain parts of the storm. And then the way that you look at different parts of the storm is by mechanically moving this large dish around. The dish is about 8.5 meters in diameter. So because it's so large, it takes some time to rotate and actually see all parts of the storm. Dual polarization is currently on the Weather Service's Xtra radars, and most meteorologists have become used to it and depend on it. Now, I mentioned the 8.5 meter dish mechanical that they have mechanically steer. With a phased array, you're basically trying to mimic a dish, the way a dish focuses radio waves, but you do it by having thousands of individual elements. You can send signals to those 1,000 elements in a certain way so that you can steer the beam electronically without moving it. And the great thing about that is you can steer the beam very quickly, like from one part of the sky to the other in a millisecond. where it may take a minute to do that with a very large mechanical dish.
So with the current next-red radars, most people, I mean, you're looking 3 to 5 minutes by the time the radar does the scan and everything. How fast are we talking the data could be updated with this new Horus radar?
With a Horus type radar system, you could get updates every few seconds. Wow. So, you know, most people are used to looking at some phone app and looking at the Weather Service radar data, and you get an update of that image, every 4 to 5 minutes. And sometimes you're impatiently waiting for that next image to come. But if we had phased array technology that could also have dual polarization, we could get the updates every few seconds. And so anytime you look at your phone, it would always be refreshed.
Well, that's something as being on TV with meteorology. I mean, you're getting a snapshot, and that snapshot can change a lot. Really, if you have a, say, fast-moving storm or fast-developing, have y'all seen in your through the research just how much more you're able to see as these storms are changing?
Yeah, I mean, we've taken a lot of data. It's been operational for about a year now in various types of experimental modes, and we get temporal resolution on the order of a few seconds. So we've seen things that we've never seen before.
And how much work behind the scenes has been going on to get this radar built and moved out?
Oh, it's been going on for too long. Probably, we've been in development for about 5 years, and we work with the NOAA National Severe Storms Lab here. So they've been a close partner with ours and have funded a lot of this work. You might have seen pictures of it. It's a flat plate, and that flat plate can view about 90 degrees in azimuth angle, so sort of one side of the storm. So we can reposition the array to wherever the storm is, or ultimately you may want 4 faces of a phased array. So if you have 4 faces, of course you can cover 360 degrees.
Well, how did y'all come up with the name Horus for this radar?
Well, this guy I was working with several years ago just came up with it. You see in these sort of military defense systems, they take names that, sound cool in one way or another. So Horus is the all-seeing eye, the Egyptian god of war and sky. And so this all-seeing eye kind of made sense to us because the phased array, we hope can, see the storms well.
To hear more about this groundbreaking radar, scan the QR code on your screen to watch on YouTube or go to KWTX.com/degrees of science. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Millions of Americans and people across Europe were treated to a spectacular sky show last weekend. That's because a series of powerful storms has sparked brilliant colored light displays across the northern hemisphere beginning last Friday night and through last weekend. The aurora borealis, more commonly known as the northern lights, are visible when there is an interaction between the solar wind environment and Earth's magnetic field. This storm was labeled a historic G5, the highest level on the ranking scale. A solar storm of that size hasn't been seen on Earth since 2003. And right here at home in Central Texas, some of us were able to witness this rare and a beautiful phenomenon. Anna Phillips sent these photos to our newsroom. They were shot in Gatesville. You could see the pink color filling up the night sky. You can also see some of the lower clouds that were in place. Those clouds prevented some in our area from actually witnessing these spectacular colors. But after seeing those breathtaking images or witnessing them in real time, you may be wondering what has to happen for those vibrant colors to appear. Well, for more on that, here's Dan Smith with this week's Moment of Science.
From lightning to sunsets, chances are you're no stranger to light shows in the sky, but there's one light show that proves rather elusive for many of us south of the Arctic Circle. This week we're taking a look at the spectacle of aurora borealis, or the northern lights. I should lead by saying I'm not even the authority in our own weather department on this. Ross Ellett has snapped some astounding shots over the years in northern Michigan, Ontario, and Manitoba. Let's backtrack tens of millions of miles to where this all begins. It should go without saying that the sun is hot, to put it mildly, but there are certain darker patches where surface temps are slightly cooler. Sunspots, not imaginative, but it gets the point across, are often spotted in pairs. And the magnetic field from all those electrically charged gases is actually what keeps those core temperatures from surfacing. Those spots will occasionally hurl those charged gases out as solar flares, but it's the coronal mass ejection out in one direction that can really mess with us here on Earth. NASA compares them to a muzzle flash versus a cannonball. Solar flares can still disrupt radio waves, but CMEs have the power to fry our own electric grids if we're not prepared. In fact, that happened to our telegraph system in its early days back in 1859. So what does all of this have to do with pretty lights in the sky? When the plasma from CMEs hits Earth at over 1 million miles an hour, the planet's magnetic field absorbs or deflects a lot of it, but at the poles, that plasma drives right in for a spectacular display. The color of auroras actually depends on the height and type of molecules that the plasma interacts with. Oxygen and nitrogen are those main players, and green colors from oxygen tend to be the most visible. Think of it like neon lights glowing different colors depending on their content. The northern lights tend to get all the press, but Aurora Australis is no less amazing. We're just biased since 88% of Earth's population happens to live in this hemisphere. For this week's Moment of Science, I'm Dan Smith.
Well, Central Texas, get ready for an early taste of that summer heat this week. We've been lucky so far this year and have mostly stayed free of 90-degree temperatures, but we have a stretch of them to get through leading up to the unofficial start to summer. That's all we have for you on this week's episode of Weather Extra. Have a great week and remember to stay hydrated.